My name is Big Time. Let's get into more alphabet mafia and other things. So let's see. Let's go to New Zealand. White people becoming second class citizens. Surgeons will be forced to prioritize operations based on patient ethnicity. That's right. Got to save the brown people. You know the ones who didn't create a hospital until the white people came to their country, like in Gambia. I think it was 1909. The Russian Red Cross built your first hospital. Wasn't the fucking Mali Empire? Do you consider an empire great if they never built you a hospital? Doctors in Auckland, New Zealand will now be forced to forced will now be forced to prioritize operations and vital health services based on the ethnicity of their patients. The policy, which was introduced in February of this year, is now being rolled out amongst other regions on the notoriously progressive country's North Island. An equity adjuster score, so total made up bullshit, will compute the ethnicity of the patient along with other factors, such as their socioeconomic background and geographic location, in order to determine how long they have to wait for treatment. Maori and Pacifica people are at the top of the list with the shortest waiting time, while European, Indians, and Chinese New Zealanders are ranked lower in priority. And here's the amazing thing: the Indians and the Chinese will probably still think this is okay. I don't get it. Because even their children can be brainwashed. According to the April email seen by the New Zealand Herald from a Health New Zealand business manager, a person of European, Asian, or Indian heritage could wait for surgery up to 50 days longer than a Maori person. Officials have stated that Indigenous New Zealanders are being given priority in order to address historical inequities with the healthcare system. Well, smoking pipes and talking to trees and screaming at the sky for rain doesn't cure cancer. The reformed health system seeks to address inequities for Maori and Pacific people who have historically have a lower life expectancy and poor health outcomes. However, a number of surgeons have come out anonymously, well, they have to, and slammed the policy, objecting to the order to rank patients by their heritage. The ethics of the system are already being called into question, and some surgeons are labeling the ethnic ranking system as medically indefensible. It's ethnically challenging to treat anyone based on race. It's their medical condition that must establish. No, that's racism. See, that's white supremacy. He was disgusted by the new system. There's no place for elitism in medicine, and the medical fraternity in this country is dispersed by these developments. Other surgeons, anonymously speaking to the press, have asserted that patients must be prioritized based on medical need and how urgently they require treatment, not on their heritage. And this is what causes extremism. Are you really going to be surprised if an Indian, Chinese, or European, if their child dies because the hospital didn't prioritize the surgery for their children? And you don't think those parents will now hate the hospital or the Maori or the Pacifica? This is how you create. All these fucking people on the left are always talking about extremism. You're creating the extremism you profess to hate so much. Do you understand? Well, there's no point. It doesn't matter. And then they get mad when you don't let them in. And then they get mad when you kick them out. And then they get mad when you don't do things their way. David Seymour, the leader of the classical liberal ACT party, said on Monday that it was completely wrong to include a patient's racial makeup in the decision operative process. We've got a government that is actually actively promoting racial discrimination now, and it's got to stop. The advantage of doing it based on the practical observation of the patient, not just categorizing people by race, is you don't catch people who happen to be Maori but actually doing very well. Thank you very much. We've got to stop running people down just because they're Maori. Dr. Sean Renty, the spokesman for National New Zealand's right-wing opposition party, said the policy was offensive, wrong, and should halt immediately, adding that they were calling on the government putting it. Well, that remains to be seen. I don't believe you. All right, let's get into some more news. Cover one story from each. In the United Kingdom, London police partners with LGBT activists who defended sex with children. Oh, London's metropolitan. But guys, they just want to get married. London's Metropolitan Police have announced that they are they are partnering with LGBT activist Peter Trachel and his organization, the Peter Trachel Foundation, in an effort to provide LGBT plus community liaison officers to citizens interacting with the police service. The move has prompted concern on social media, with critics pointing to Trachel's extensive history of pedophile apologism, noting that he has previously advocating for lowering the age of consent. On Monday, the Metropolitan Police posted a video featuring Trachel to their Twitter account, wherein it is stated that Trachel will work with law enforcement to build trust and confidence in order to encourage more LGBT plus people to come forward to report hate crimes, domestic violence, and sexual assaults. Oh, here he is. Let's hear from the word himself.
I'm delighted that the Metropolitan Police have announced the reinstatement of LGBT plus community liaison officers across London. That will provide a vital link between the police and local LGBT plus communities. We know that when there are dedicated officers, it builds trust and confidence, and that will encourage more LGBT plus people to come forward to report hate crime, domestic violence, and sexual assaults.
But when Pakistani Muslims rape white children, it's seen as cultural differences. Go fuck yourself.
That's what we want: collaboration and cooperation.
In a statement on the London's police force's official website, Commissioner Mark Rowley explained that a campaign by the Peter Trachel Foundation found that the police force had systems and processes in place which have led to bias and discrimination. Well, there's too many white people. As a result of the campaign by the Peter Trachel Foundation, the Metropolitan Police had commissioned the foundation to deliver LGBT plus community liaison officers. Sir Mark is backing up his apology to the LGBT plus community with concrete action. Restoring those dedicated LGBT plus liaison officers will strengthen collaboration. But yeah, it's all bullshit. Hate crimes. You allow children to be raped and you don't punish the rapists. Go fuck yourself. Go jump in a lake with a millstone. Peter Trachel established his foundation in 2011 as a registered charity in order to protect human rights both in the UK and internationally, according to the organization's website. I wonder where he gets his money from. Open Society. Trachel has personally been involved in LGBT activism for several decades. During the course of his career as an activist, he has come under fire multiple times for comments he made downplaying the harms of child sexual abuse and has previously advocated for lowering the age of consent. In 1986, Trachel contributed to a chapter of a book compiled by Warren Middleton, former vice chairman of the Pedophile Information Exchange, PI, like cheese pizza, entitled Radical Perspectives on Childhood Sexuality, Intergenerational Sex, and the Social Oppression of Children and Young People. PI, which for a decade advocated for adult minor sexual relationships to be decriminalized and called for abolishing the age of consent, was disbanded in 1984, and several prominent members were arrested for child sexual abuse offenses. Wow, no way. People who advocate for lowering the age of consent are groomers and pedophiles. Wow, that's no way. I mean, like when five black guys are walking towards you with pooh shiesty masks on and their pants sagging, you cross the street. In Trachel's chapter on the book, he argued that laws criminalizing adults for sexually abusing children do more harm than the abuse itself. Oh, that's right. It's the rapists. The rapist is the victim. Other chapters in the book cover child pornography and prostitution, incest, and how to make pedophilia more acceptable. He later tried to distance himself from this book by claiming he was conned into contributing. Oh, so you're not intelligent enough to understand that you shouldn't associate with groomers and pedophiles. So then you're too fucking dumb to be given money. However, at the time, Trachel praised the book in a review he penned for the Communist Party of Great Britain. I mean, it writes itself. Another communist. No way. In the review, Trachel wrote, society would remove a lot of fear, anxiety, and depression if Instead of repressing children's sexuality, it acknowledged the fact that many children have sexual desires at an early age and accordingly educated children so they are able to make free, informed, and responsible decisions about whom and with whom they have sex. In 1997, Churchill also contributed to a chapter of a book called Dares to Speak. The book presented a favorable exploration of pedophilia, stressing the positive nature of some child adult sexual relationships and announcing that several of his friends had had sexual encounters with adults when they were between the ages of 9 to 13. He's okay. Do you I'm seeing a pattern of children who were sexually abused become abusers themselves. Do you see the pattern? British LGBT activist Peter Trachell in this clip thinks a 9-year-old can consent to sex with a 50-year-old man. Let's hear what he says.
He told me when he was about 50 that he had had sex with a young man when he was 9 years old. He said it was his choice. He said he wasn't pressured or manipulated. He said he had no regrets about that sexual experience. So my view is, that's what he's saying. It's his personal view as an adult, mature man looking back on his childhood. If he says that, who am I or you to dispute it? Now, I accept that most sex involving young people is abusive and wrong. His view is perhaps exceptional.
That's right, guys. Let's flip that. A woman's being raped, and she says she wasn't raped. A child's being beaten by his parents, but he says they're not beating him. Do you see how this doesn't work? Can a child consent to abuse? How does the child know what's happening? See, that's the thing I don't get. That to me is what makes this so upsetting and why I want you to have a millstone on your neck. If you want to have sex, why do you have to have sex with something that doesn't understand that it's having sex? It's like an animal. An animal cannot consent. Not in the way a human does. Not in the way an adult does. And this is always the fascinating double standard they have. This is the same guy who, if a black person is charged, if the 5 black men who did the drive-by on Sasha Johnson in London were convicted of crime, if they tried to convict them of murder, this motherfucker would say, well, the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, so they can't be charged for murder. But a 9-year-old can consent to sex. This is the cognitive dissonance block these type of motherfuckers have. And those are exactly the 2 type of laws that have been passed in Maryland.
But it's not a view that should be dismissed and denied. If an adult person looks back on an early sexual experience and says they consented to it, they were not pressured, they were not harmed, they have no regrets or complaints, I think we should do the honest thing and accept their viewpoint.
And does that person now want to have sex with children? Finish the question. Finish the statement. Oh, so a child who was abused wants to continue abusing children when they're an adult. Fascinating. Book reviewers at the time criticized the authors, accusing them of attempting to normalize pedophilia and described the book as part of a wider campaign to abolish. Yeah, that's what it is. The book refuses to take seriously sexual abuse and its consequences. One reviewer, Ross Coward, wrote, that's your name. Responding to the criticism, Tachel wrote to The Guardian, of course, The Guardian defending the book, The Guardian which defended gay orgies and saying that if you have gay sex with 17 partners, raw dog, it's the white man's fault the gay guy got monkeypox. That's the fucking trash this guy wrote to. Citing a researcher an appeal to authority, who described sex between adult men and boys as an initiation ritual into manhood in an indigenous tribe. Oh, wow. The same tribe that couldn't build a hospital, the same tribe that couldn't. Okay, sure. All right. I'll bite. Oh, wow. The same tribe that would, like I just said earlier, would scream at the sky and dance around and talk to trees and do a dance around a fire to heal medicine. That tribe. Oh, so you want the white man's medicine to save you, but when it comes to sex with children, we got to go back to the fucking natives, right? Oh my God. Professor Hart points to the Sambia tribe of Papua New Guinea, where all young boys have sex with older warriors as a part of their initiation into manhood. Far from being harmed, Professor Hart says the boys grow up to be happy, well adjusted husbands and fathers. How the fuck would you know that? Churchill wrote in his letter to The Guardian that while he did not justify child abuse, in some cases he believed that children might enjoy sexual interactions with adults. However, the book chapters are not the only example of Churchill's apologism, thank you, for pedophilia. In 97, again, Churchill posted an interview with a 14-year-old boy where they discussed pedophilia and the sexual relationships he had had with adult men that started when he was only 12. The interview was republished in 2007 by IPCE, a Dutch pedophile publication. In the interview titled, I'm 14, I'm gay, and I want a boyfriend, Churchill asked the 14-year-old Lee what he thought about child sex abusers. He responded, it depends on what kind of pedophile. Those who have sex with little kids should be strung up by the bollocks. The pedophiles I knew always asked me if I wanted sex. They didn't pressure me. If you consent to having sex with a pedophile, it's fine. If you don't, it's not. Right, because if you say no, right, because I know when I know the victim of a rapist, if she says no, the rape doesn't happen, right? In the interview, the boy describes how he was the victim of child prostitution beginning from the age of 12 while he was in the care system. It was mostly me just wanking them off. I stopped about a year and a half ago when I was doing it. I felt sick. I didn't enjoy it. I was only doing it for the money to buy drugs, mostly speed, acid, and cannabis. Where were your parents? Churchill also stated that the 14-year-old child prefers relationships with older men. I don't get on with people my own age. That's probably because they think you're weird. They're too immature. I like men in their 20s or early 30s. They're more experienced and serious. With them, you can get into a closer relationship than with a teenager. You don't even know what a fucking relationship is. Churchill used the interview to advocate for lowering the age of consent to 14. Any man who has sex with Lee could face a maximum sentence of 10 years for kissing, touching, sucking, or wanking, and life imprisonment for anal sex. But that's not long enough. Churchill added a note on the article stating that he does not support children having sex with adults, but rather that children under 16 should not be criminalized for having consenting relationships with other young people of similar ages. Yeah, but you're not talking about 16 and 17 or 14 and 15. You're talking about 16. You're talking about 14 and 50. You fucking child diddler. Lee expressed an interest in relationships with adult men and even told Churchill he was in a relationship with an adult man in his mid-20s. Churchill presented the argument that it was not right that Lee and his boyfriend had to wait until he was 18, the legal age for homosexual male sex in 97, before having sex. Society won't accept my feelings. It says I'm forbidden to have sex with a man until I'm 18. A perfect relationship is what I want. It can make me very happy. So why is the law trying to stop me? Yeah, that's right. That's right. 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 In an opinion piece for The Guardian in 2009 titled Don't Criminalize Young Sex, Churchill reasserted his position on age of consent laws. I believe the time has come for a calm, rational assessment of the age at which young people should be lawfully entitled to have sex. We need this debate because the current age of consent of 16 ignores reality. He further argued that the United Kingdom ought to lower the age of consent to 14 years old. Currently in the UK, it is legal for adults to have sexual relations with any teenager with any teenager over the age of 16, because I'm so pissed off. Reducing the age of consent to 14 would potentially decriminalize sexual relationships between adults and children as young as. Why not go 10? Why not go 6? Why not a baby? Slippery slope, right? It's just a fallacy, right? Churchill had also been connected to other individuals who were openly involved in pedophile rights groups. In 1998, he wrote a glowing obituary for Ian Dunn, describing him as a pioneer for let me guess, he was a child fucker, right? Dunn was one of the founding members of the pedophile rights group known as the Pedophile Information Exchange, or PI. Pi was formed in 1974 and used similar arguments as those made by Techel to normalize pedophilia by presenting the issue as a matter of children's rights to have consensual sex while arguing that age of consent laws restricted children's freedom. In reality, Pi was an insidious lobby group consisting of open pedophiles and child abusers who were campaigning for adults to be legally allowed to sexually abuse children under the guise of sexual liberation. But does that sound familiar? I bet Yuri Bezmenov would have a field day with this shit. According to the 1983 book, The Child Lovers, a study of pedophiles in society, Pi surveyed its members in 1978 and found that they were most sexually interested in girls aged 8 to 11 and boys aged 11 to 15 years old. They didn't emphasize that this was 50-year-old men wanting to have sex with 5-year-olds. They presented it as the sexual liberation of children, that children should have the right to sex. There isn't enough fucking rope. Keith Hose, one of Pi's leaders, was quoted as saying, "I am a pedophile. I'm not even reading that. I don't even want someone to edit it." This guy said that he is a pedophile. This guy said, Keith Hose, he said he's attracted to kids this age. I don't even want to read it because someone could take this clip and chop it up and use it against me. More recently, Peter Tatcho has attempted to distance himself from the allegations of being still not enough rope, though, towards the allegations of being sympathetic towards child sexual abusers in 2018 after feminine journalist and author Julie Bindel caught attention to his obituary for Dunn. Techel denied having any knowledge of his friend's association with Pi, though he gaslit you. In 2020, he published a statement on his website condemning child sexual abuse, saying, "My writing on the age of consent has been solely concerned with ending the criminalization of young people of similar ages." Then why do you argue? Then why the fuck do you talk about a 50-year-old and a 9-year-old, bro? Why do you talk about a 50-year-old and a 9-year-old? You're on. This is like the fucking Hunter Avallone effect. Hunter Avallone wasn't aware about Joe Biden talking about the district attorney in Ukraine for Burisma interviewing investigating his son, and Hunter Biden's on video saying we'll withhold $1 billion in aid, and Hunter Avallone hadn't even seen the fucking video, and he denied it even happened. Bro, you're on video advocate. It's like they know no one will push back. That's why they can act that way. Let's see. Where was I? In 2020, he published. Okay. Also in 2020, Techel blasted Southwark Labor for attempting to prevent homosexual men from having sex in a public park. Just say you want to live in the Weimar Republic. He described their move to cut down trees in Burgess Park in London to discourage men from having sex in public as eco-vandalism and homophobia. The council obtained a 1-year injunction from the local court beginning from August 28, 2020, which banned antisocial behavior in the park due to the area being a popular spot for men to meet for sex, even in broad daylight. Instead of liaisoning with local LGBT plus community, has got a court injunction to stop gay men cruising. Well, cruising itself is terminology. And committing eco-vandalism by cutting down bushes to increase the likelihood that members of the public will see sex acts, homophobia. Right. They have to cut down trees so you don't fuck and spew in a park. I don't care what a groomer thinks. Stay away from my children. We're past the point of humanity. This month, Techel also publicly defended former TV presenter Philip Schofield, who abruptly left his popular daytime show after it was discovered he had an affair with a young male colleague who he had met as a child. Schofield was accused of grooming the young man as he had been interacting with him on social media when he was underage. So now you have to say a word to try to overstep the fucking grooming of children. Oh, it's homophobic, huh? The trashing of Philip Schofield has more than a whiff of homophobia. So this is the same thing the small hats do. Any criticism, they just refer to a word. Anti-gay prejudice is explicit on social media and implicit as much on the national media. Not as bad as child fucking, you pedo. Techel has become a vocal advocate for gender identity ideology while openly opposing gender-critical feminists such as Germaine Greer and J.K. Rowling. Of course he does. He advocates for allowing men who identify as women to use women's spaces, including for male rapists to be housed in female prisons. Of course. The Met Police Force also has a shocking history of violence against women and sexual harassment and abuse from within their ranks. In March of 2021, a Met officer kidnapped and murdered a 33-year-old Sarah Everard. The police officer, Wayne Cozens, had previously been reported for indecent exposure, but was not arrested and was permitted to continue serving as a police officer. Following Everett's murder, a report was carried out into institutionalized misogyny in the Met Police, which uncovered that there may be more officers like Cozens and found the force had failed to protect the public from officers who abuse women. Wow, really? Currently, approximately 800 Met police officers are under investigation for sexual violence and domestic abuse claims. Yeah, of course. So, in other words, you destroy everything you go. And let's not forget, where is it? To Chell praise he penned for the Communist Party of Great Britain. Wow, no way. So the pedophile is a communist. What is, wow, guys, that was a surprise. All right. We're just going to pick a random story today. Let's see. Uh-oh. Wow. Okay. Is this black privilege here? Yep. Let's see. California woman gets only 2 years prison time after firebombing bank in LA. Oh boy. Oh well. Interesting. I would have expected it more for a black man because typically black men are more of a protected class than black women. Let's see. A woman has been arrested and sentenced to only 24 months in prison after firebombing a bank in Los Angeles, California with a Molotov cocktail. Tan Renee Millette was arrested in January of 21 on the other side of the country in Georgia after having causing the explosion in September earlier that year. Millette was a student at Santa Monica College in California. Let me guess, she had to do it, right? On March 21st, Millette pleaded guilty to unlawful possession of a firearm and destructive device, an incendiary bomb. A Molotov cocktail is considered an incendiary device. Some counties actually call it a bomb. In September of 2021, after having a dispute with the branch manager, Millette yelled she would blow this bitch up. After Millette left briefly, the manager called 911 and notified law enforcement. Not good enough. You should have had armed security. Millette came back a few minutes later to throw a Molotov cocktail into the branch. The explosion caused a fire, and as Millette left, she threatened another customer and threw a glass bottle at the customer's truck. The reason for the initial dispute was that Millette had grown impatient waiting in line. Well, that's racist. He should have been up to the front and told all the other people to wait. When she spoke to the manager, Millette said that she believed she'd been waiting for too long. Within a few minutes, police arrived and recovered what remained of the explosive device. At the time of her arrest in Georgia, Millette led police on chase in a stolen van, which ended when she crashed. Of course. Inside the van, other material, so she had other Molotov cocktails. Well, I'm surprised they didn't give her a medal because she's fighting the system. I mean, banks are just a part of the capitalistic white supremacist society, right? Officer used video surveillance from the bank branch to identify Millette committing the crimes in LA. She suffered injuries from the crash, which were then treated. Well, I mean, if you're willing to light people on fire because you can't wait in line, I can understand why such things like redlining and Jim Crow exist. She has been in custody since the arrest and will now be admitted to federal prison. She was originally charged in March 2022 with one count of attempted arson and one count of unlawful possession of the destructive device. If she had been convicted of each original charge, she would have had a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years in federal prison for the charges that were originally brought. Interesting. We'll do one more. I got to get out of here. Hopefully we'll have a longer show on with Wicked tomorrow. We're going to talk about the crime. Oh, we got some good stuff. Chicago is just pumping shit out, watching it all die. Let's see. Let's see. Hmm. I want something a little heavier. Let's go back to the Publica. Post millennial, they're short. So we're going to go back to the Publica. Just. All right. What do we got? I just got to keep going. United Kingdom. Sadistic boyfriend sentenced to only 14 months in jail after making woman eat her own stillborn daughter's ashes. A British man will only serve 14 months in prison after being found guilty of committing a string of domestic abuse offenses, including making his partner eat the ashes of her recently stillborn daughter. Bolton Crown Court heard how Paul McCain, 46, abused Erin Gringsby, 38, during their 6-month relationship. Interesting. He looks like a white dude. Usually I would expect him to get like life. Which led to charges of intentional strangulation, 2 counts of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, and engaging in controlling behavior. Grigsby recounted in a witness impact statement how after meeting McCain online while 4 months pregnant, he began engaging in abusive behavior, the stress of which he believes is partially to blame for her daughter being stillborn. Yeah. Following the death of her daughter, she moved in with McCain. So he was abusive, but you still moved in, putting your child's life at risk. Who proceeded to physically abuse her, including beating her the Saturday before her daughter's funeral. McCain poured superglue all over Gringsby's hair, forcing her to cut it all off and put a noose around her neck until she passed out. He also exercised finically abusive behavior, cutting up the woman's bank card so that she had complete dependency on him. However, what was described as the most horrific act of abuse was when McCain forced Gringsby to eat the ashes. Okay, all right. I want him dead. There are no words for his sadistic actions, and smile as he did the unthinkable. In this moment, I wanted to die. The night terrors are unbearable, and I forever lost part of Nellie to his evil actions. I can't look at her photos, her tiny handprints, or her ashes without remembering what he did and how he desecrated her ashes. After initially meeting McCain, Grigsby has placed a request to the police under Clare's law for information on him, which allows authorities to disclose if a partner has been previously abusive. The police did not release the information for 4 months, at which point abuse against Grigsby had already taken place. Though he pleaded guilty, McCain was sentenced to only 14 months in prison and will serve the rest of his 3-year sentence in the community under conditions. The United Kingdom ongoing issue of lenient sentencing continues to be a point of mockery and disbelief to international audiences on social media. In May, the British Transport Police came under widespread backlash after proudly boasting on Twitter that a man they caught raping a 13-year-old child had been sentenced to just 18 months in prison. Oh, well, of course. Cultural differences, guys. We're oppressing him. Do you know what Bakabazi is? 18 months for a kid. He's traumatized for the rest of her life. Pathetic. There's not enough rope. I can't even read the rest. Last week, an Indian student was sentenced to only 4 years in a young offenders institution after raping an intoxicated woman in Cardiff city centre last year. As previously reported by the Publica, a British judge recently prevented the deportation of an Iraqi pedophile who claimed that he was bisexual. The man had served just 10 months in jail beforehand for the sexual abuse of a child. Yeah. We'll see you tomorrow with Wicked.